Like most of you, I woke up this morning under the sovereign and safe skies of the United States of America. I woke up under a red, white, and blue blanket of freedom. Freedom is a privilege, and freedom is not free. I'm Colonel Scott Grant from the 117th Air Refueling Wing right here in Birmingham, and it is absolutely my pleasure to share a brief reflection of the sacrifices of our Americans since 9/11. It's a real privilege to be here with civic leaders, first responders, and especially the fifth graders right here from Homewood. And I understand you guys have been studying 9/11 in history. Is that true? Yes, sir. Why is it so special? Because today we're commemorating the 11th anniversary of 9/11, and to have 11-year-olds with us here today. How many had a birthday here in September? Happy birthday. All righty. For your young men and women, your families will remember 2001 for too many special reasons. First, in a wonderful way, because you were born and brought into their life. And second, because their world was turned upside down in a way they had never known. Most remember where they were on that beautiful September morning, much like this. At 8:13 a.m., the last radio call from American Flight 11 was heard. At 8:46, Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of World Trade Center number 1 at 466 miles an hour. At 8:52, the Air National Guard F-15s from Otis Air National Guard Base in Massachusetts were airborne in response to this threat. At 9:03, United Flight 173 crashed into South Tower World Trade Center number 2 at 595 miles an hour. At 9:37, American Airlines Flight 77 crashed into the Pentagon. And at 10:03, United Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania short of its target. 50 minutes from the time we had a first indication of trouble until the time it was over. 2,977 prosperous and meaningful lives were extinguished that day. Believe me, I'm not counting the 19 cowards that caused this. Nearly 3,000 families and a naive nation was changed forever. This was the pivotal event of our generation. This was our Pearl Harbor. America was asleep. It took for granted our domestic blanket of freedom that I spoke of. Everything that was going on bad in the world seemed like it was going on overseas. But America was asleep until Osama bin Laden launched 4 separate attacks in an absolutely unheard of manner. Greater than 916 first responders sacrificed their lives that day for Americans that they never even knew. Within 6 minutes, the first Air National Guard aircraft became airborne, began patrolling the domestic skies of the United States, fully armed. The President and Vice President were faced with a decision that they never even fathomed, as to how and to when to shoot down a civilian airliner to protect the rest of our nation. In Birmingham, your Air National Guard within the first hours had all of its jets refueled and ready to go. Within 3 hours, they were all on alert status, and within 5 hours, they took to the skies. In the first 2.5 weeks alone, there was a KC-135 from the Birmingham airport airborne at all times, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mainly refueling AWACS aircraft, they were providing a watchful eye of radar over New York City and the District of Columbia. Also refueling F-15 and F-16 strike aircraft that were armed patrolling the same skies. I've flown combat missions around the world, but when you fly a mission over your homeland, it's a very different and a very memorable experience. I'll never forget on the 12th of September flying over Atlanta. Now bear in mind, all the U.S. airspace had been closed down. The only thing that was flying was medevac, military, and law enforcement aircraft. I looked down over Hartsfield Airport and I saw what seemed like thousands of airplanes, nose to tail and wingtip to wingtip, parked and silent. I refueled an F-16 that day from a pilot from Shaw Air Force Base that said, "Do you believe this? I am fully armed and I'm flying over Atlanta." My most memorable mission after 9/11 in the United States was at night. I was flying over the mall in District of Columbia waiting for an F-15 to come up and get his gas. And I looked down on top of the Pentagon, the headquarters of the Department of Defense of the greatest nation in the world, and it was billowing with smoke still that night. Abroad, the Birmingham National Guard had deployed to Incirlik Air Base, Turkey, for a period of 1 year to set up what we call an air bridge over the Black Sea, which is nothing more than an airborne gas station to let all of our C-5s and C-17s fly from Germany, never stop for gas, hook up with us over the Black Sea, and press on down to Afghanistan for the initial war efforts and the buildup for the global war on terrorism. And folks, that's just the story of what was going on here in Birmingham. These same stories were going over all over the 50 states. Our way of life and our freedom had become under attack. The American giant was now awake. I'm going to pose a question to you. Who were the very first to engage this enemy? Who were the first Americans to face and defeat terrorism? I'll give you a hint. Only a couple of them are wearing uniforms, and they weren't in the military. There were a few select cabin crew and passengers on United Flight 93. They were not armed with rifles and smart bombs. They were armed with hot coffee, a drink cart, bare hands, and determination. Todd Beamer, a now very famous passenger aboard Flight 93, called his wife from row 32. He then organized an airborne insurgency, recited the Lord's Prayer, stormed the cockpit, and was able to get the aircraft crashed into a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and denied the terrorist target of either the U.S. Capitol or the White House that day. As a result, a quarter of the terrorist attacks on 9/11 were stopped in their tracks by Flight 93. Just a few of those 33 passengers and 7 crew members made a difference. Look what just a determined few, the impact they have had. They were unprepared, they were untrained, they were unselfish, and they were unwavering in their commitment. And they knew they would never see their loved ones again. Many of them picked up the phone and actually told them that. These were the first Americans to look terrorism right in the eyeball and say, "Not today, not on my watch." Todd Beamer's last audible words were, "Let's roll," as they stormed the cockpit. Those words quickly became the war cry for all those worldwide fighting Al-Qaeda. Those same words are displayed on the nose of one aircraft in every Air Force flying unit in America. Locally, the 117th Air Refueling Wing's KC-135s fly under the call sign of Dixie 93 on the first sortie of every week. Today, the first sortie that takes off today will fly under Dixie 93 in commemoration of Flight 93. In September of 2001, Americans volunteered in record numbers for public service. They flew their flags. They placed their hands over their heart at football games when they heard the national anthem, and they did it instinctively. They prayed daily for soldiers and first responders. In the newspaper, these stories of Americans that were dying for our freedoms were covered on the front page, and it was above the fold. I'm afraid we've lost just a little bit of that enthusiasm sometimes. Freedom is not free, but it may not always be seen as newsworthy. The global war on terrorism is producing twice the number of amputees as in recent or in past conflicts. Now, this is a bittersweet statistic because body armor technology has saved many, many lives, and many of these folks would have been fatalities. In addition, the last 11 years, the post-traumatic stress disorder records are absolutely staggering. Air Force Master Sergeant Evander Andrews, the very first serviceman to make the ultimate sacrifice, on the 11th of October 2001 as he was killed in Qatar during the initial buildup. Army Chief Warrant Officers Jose Montenegro and Thea Ramirez were killed just a few days ago in a helicopter crash in the Logar province of Afghanistan. There's the first, and notably not the last. There were 6,568 airmen, soldiers, sailors, and Marines in between those two. 106 sacrifices have been made here in the state of Alabama alone. These are the names that sewed those red stripes on our blanket of freedom. All these names are volunteers. There is no draft. All of today's servicemen and first responders, again, volunteers. Historically, in World War II, 11.2% of all Americans served within a 4-year period of time. In Vietnam, 4.3% served within 12 years. Today in the global war on terrorism, 0.45% have served within the last 11 years. The Congress that voted on the invasion of Iraq itself was only 10% veteran, and only one member had a child in the military. Winston Churchill said, "Never in the field of human conflict has so much been owed by so many to so few." Daily, there are 3,000 National Guardsmen protecting your homeland, protecting the airspace. The Air National Guard is providing 17 of 18 alert sites around the country. Here in Birmingham, there's a KC-135 sitting at this very moment, awaiting the call to respond to any type of threat to the airborne sovereignty. What am I trying to say? Every American can do something, but doing nothing is not American. Unless Americans voluntarily step out, stand up, and volunteer, there is no sacrifice. No sacrifice like in World War II. There's no rationing of gasoline, no rationing of tires, no limit to certain resources. There's no collection of medals and newspapers strictly for the war effort. It's incumbent upon us as Americans to get involved and stay engaged, even after 11 years. Young men and women are dying for this very cause. Winston Churchill also said, "To every man there comes a time in his life, that special moment where he is figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered a choice to do a very special thing that's unique to him and fitted to his talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds him unprepared or unqualified for the work which would be his finest hour." In closing, I'm going to leave you with a little bit of military terminology and a little bit of a challenge. I want to leave you with the challenge of sustained engagement. Send a care package to a troop overseas. Mow the yard for a family of a deployed soldier or a first responder. Stand reverent when you hear the national anthem being played. Put your cell phone down. Take your hat off. Put your hand over your heart and encourage the one beside you to do it. It's contagious, and it's really the right thing to do. General Douglas MacArthur stated that only those that have made a vital contribution are entitled to enjoy freedom. At 8:13 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time on September 11, 2001, a new chapter of American history was begun. These children that are younger than 11 know nothing different. Most of today's servicemen, their entire career has been served during wartime, and they know nothing different. The physical wounds alone of the fathers and mothers that have served are absolutely too numerous to count. The dad that will never pass the football with the son. The daughter that won't have a dad at graduation or there for that big wedding. The son of that son that will only hear stories of his grandfather. The impact of the psychological wounds will be felt for generations. 11 years of war has scarred families, friends, communities, and a nation forever. The price of freedom will continue to be paid by volunteers. The price of freedom is paid with the blood of the loyal and the determined, and the only receipt for that payment is valor and honor. It has absolutely been an honor and a privilege to share this very day of special remembrance with you. For us all, it is an honor to live in a country that has citizens like Todd Beamer that stand up to terrorism, lay down their lives for others, and say, "Not today, not on my watch." Thank you very much.